We do it right, overseas looking nice. Room service, if I like, I order twice. Hibachi, got the gravy on the rice. Rolling in.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to another edition of the Steelers Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betz, and I am not joined by anybody tonight. I'm going solo, had some complications technically, so we are going to be working solo tonight, and that's okay. We're going to have a fun show. We're going to talk some Steelers football, or Steelers offseason, really, and I want to change things up a little bit for this episode. I want to ask the questions tonight, and you can still ask me some questions, but the main conversation tonight, I'm going to ask the questions. I've got 5 questions for Steeler Nation as you tune into the live chat. Welcome in, Kathy Afton. I got Ruin It Randy in here. Keep those comments coming, but I'm going to ask a bunch of questions tonight, 5 of them actually to be exact, and hopefully get some great answers from you guys in the chat. Gavin Anthony, Dennis Povlak, Trey Jalen Hurts is in the chat. Wow, okay. Kenny Pickett. I don't know. Can we move on from Kenny Pickett talk, Steeler Nation? Can we? We'll see if this is something we need to take care of a little bit later on. But Jamie Carlo, welcome in, Jamie. AFL 67 has a question already. We'll get to that in just a second. I'll go ahead and mark this one and we will talk about it. But hope you guys are doing well tonight. Sup, Mark Cunningham. Thanks for tuning in to the chat. It's going to be fun. We're going to have good conversation. And hey, I hope you guys all saw Minkah Fitzpatrick had 2 picks in the Pro Bowl. I was watching with deadly intent the whole time. Just intention never left the game, obviously, for these impressive Pro Bowl games. I'm just kidding. I watched a couple highlights on X as they came through. So if you watched the Pro Bowl and enjoyed it, then, more power to you. It's just not my thing. I used to like the Pro Bowl when it was an actual game, but not so much anymore. But yeah, that's what happened this week. Obviously, you're going to have NFL honors this next week. I don't know if the Steelers are going to take home any awards this year. I would think their best chance is TJ Watt for the Defensive Player of the Year, but I don't know if that's going to end up going to him. I think other players had better seasons overall, especially considering what we're used to with TJ Watt. So Gavin asked what conference won. It was the NFC. The NFC took it. I don't know the final score, but I do know that they pulled out a win. But yeah, Dennis, you're right. The Pro Bowl is where'd you go? Oh, there you go. The Pro Bowl is pointless now. Even the accolade of making the Pro Bowl is pointless now, because once you get like 3 or 4 alternates deep and they get a Pro Bowl, like it goes on the resume that they were voted to the Pro Bowl in 2024 or whatever, same as anybody else. I just think that's a little bit undermining the importance that you would try to place on something like that. So yeah, Pro Bowl doesn't mean much. Jamie Carlos says it was background noise while it was on the other podcast. Jamie, welcome in. Thank you all. I think it's really impressive that we get so much conversation, so many people coming in and talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, even during an offseason after a disappointing completion of the year. So keep letting your people know about this show and all the other shows at Steel Curtain Network. Tune in, like, and subscribe on YouTube. And then if you like audio only while you're driving in the car or on your way to work, check that out as well. Let's dive into it. Y'all keep bringing in your questions here. We're going to talk about those, but I want to ask some questions tonight as well. And I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to kind of give my answer. And while I'm giving my answer to it, I'm going to be looking through the chat to see what y'all's answer is. So be ready with those fingers. Type up some answers here. And the first one, pretty simple, because I think we're all kind of waiting for something to happen, right? We're all kind of just waiting for something to go down in Pittsburgh. And I know some things we have to wait on, obviously. But there are plenty of moves that could have and probably should have been made that have not been made so far. I know that the Steelers have lost their inside linebackers coach. He was poached by the Jets, I believe. And so now the Steelers have a vacancy at inside linebacker coach. And Aaron Curry is no longer with the team. So we're going to have to find somebody to fill that void. I know, the huge coaching news we were all looking for. So, goodness, I don't know. It's pretty disheartening. I don't know. It's pretty disheartening, right? That the Steelers have been so lackadaisical with what their offseason looks like so far. Because I think after the 5th year of this, and I know, you win some games throughout the season. You had what seemed like a good year. You made the playoffs. You made the playoffs with 4 games to spare. It's just disappointing, though, how you finish. And when you're a team with expectations like Pittsburgh, the expectation not being met for the 5th time in a row once you make the playoffs, that has to hold as much water as, not performing during the regular season. So Steelers don't do anything about that, though. So my question is to all of you, here we go. Question number 1, get your fingers ready to type in those answers. What's the Steelers' first big move of the offseason going to be? What is that move going to be? Let me know in the comments and tell me what you think. I think it's just so many different ways they could go with this. Obviously, maybe signing some of their own free agents, getting deals on the table for guys like that. Maybe that's at quarterback. Maybe they do evaluate the coaching position and get rid of somebody else. I don't know. I think that it's just such an interesting conversation because you've got to figure out linebacker coach. You got to figure out quarterback. You've got one on the roster, and it's Skylar Thompson, who's made some starts, but he's not going to be your quarterback in 2025. There's a number of directions they could go with it. So I'm going to predict that their first big move of the offseason is signing Justin Fields. And I think I have some people in here that agree with me. I've got Mark says sign Fields. Yeah. Sign Justin Fields. Dennis Pavlak says signing Justin Fields had better be the move. Quadfather agrees with us, Mark. And there's, let's see here. Jamie Carlo. I mean, yeah, you got to hire a linebacker coach. Yeah, I obviously do. I'm thinking a little bit bigger than that probably, but man, if you want to be serious about the upcoming season, you go with the guy who it has youth, has still potential. He was in your building. You saw the growth and development of him. And you look at the rest of the market and you're like, there's nobody else here that's going to get us where we need to go or where we want to go in 2025 and beyond potentially. Nobody in the draft, really. Nobody. I mean, you might be able to trade for somebody, but you're going to trade for an aging vet probably. None of these big time young quarterbacks are going anywhere. So if you're Pittsburgh, the thing to do, right, is to go get the guy with as much of a dynamic play style as possible that is available to you right now, who is actually in your building this year. So that to me is the big move of the offseason. Jamie says, yes, I agree. Gavin Anthony says the first big move is probably bringing back either quarterback, most likely Fields. Yep. So we're kind of all in lockstep here. I figured that would be the case. Do you guys see any surprise firings, which would then come with a subsequent hiring before obviously you're making like player and personnel decisions? I don't think so. I think the Steelers are pretty much set, right? They're going to hire an inside linebacker coach. They may hire a couple support staff pieces. I wouldn't bet my life on that. But yeah, I just don't think anybody is going to be fired at this point. Oh, ruin it. Randy agrees. If nobody's fired yet, it seems hard to imagine. Yeah, it does. It seems hard to imagine that would happen now. So I don't know. I think we're all kind of in lockstep here that the first big move is going to kind of be at quarterback, and we would say Fields, right? So let's say though that we kind of take that discussion and we narrow it down, right? There's some options out here. So you got Fields, who technically is a free agent, right? You got some aging vets that could be available via trade potentially. You got some young guys in the draft that you could take a look at. So my second question is, how do the Steelers get their starting quarterback for 2025? Is it free agency, trade, or draft? I think that draft is off the table. They're not going to get a starting quarterback. They're not going to get a starting quarterback from the draft, right? They may try to get kind of like a project quarterback in the middle rounds. I wouldn't put that past them. I wouldn't hate that move anyway. So, but I think draft is kind of off the table for finding your starter for 2025. Now, Art Rooney coming in, stepping up and saying quarterback is the big issue. We need to have a quarterback. That to me means they're going to be aggressive in that department. And the fact that he says they want one or the other of Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, and we've already talked, we're leaning Justin Fields in that regard. That to me makes it, that's the most likely that it's Justin Fields at this point. That's the most likely outcome, is that Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025, which means they would have gotten him via free agency. Or they make a splashier move via trade, okay? Because it's not going to come through the draft. And I don't think they're going to trade up a bunch of draft picks to move up into the top 5 to draft one of the first-round draftable quarterbacks. Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders kind of is that group. And you can argue, and I would strongly argue, that they're not worthy of top 5 picks in this draft. So to me, it is a trade or free agency. If they go the trade route, there's 2 names that stand out to me. Geno Smith from Seattle and Matt Stafford from Los Angeles. And you can describe the merits and detractors of each. If you're serious about trying to win a Super Bowl in 2025, you probably trade for Stafford. But in that case, you would have to draft somebody in the middle rounds as a developmental piece, to where you can see if Matt Stafford's got 2 years left, and give you those 2 years, and you can develop a guy behind him to kind of step up and see what you can do there. That could be a route you go, right? But you're going to have to give up some capital if you want to go get Matt Stafford. He was in the playoffs this year. They won a playoff game this year. They are with Stafford, and he plays some of the best football of any quarterback when he's on his game. So the trade potential, it's part of the discussion, right? And I like Geno Smith. I think that he's a better quarterback than he's given credit for in most regards. I think he's a top 10, 12 quarterback in this league. And the Steelers haven't had that in years. So if that's what you have to do, and he's only 31, I think. So he's got some prime years left that you can get him on this team, and he can win some games for you. I don't know if he's taking you all the way. Probably not. He's a little mistake prone, right? But he's willing to throw the ball over the middle of the field, which the Steelers haven't seen that in a long time, it feels like. And he's willing to stand in the pocket, take some hits. He's got some ability to move around. So he could be intriguing at the right price for Pittsburgh. One thing I think we know about Omar Khan is he's not going to overpay for anything. So if the price were to be right, then I think the Steelers could be aggressive in that regard too. So I would take either Geno Smith or Matt Stafford on this team. But my preference would be to go get Justin Fields in free agency. So I say most likely, how do the Steelers get their starting quarterback for 2025? Free agency, then trade, then the draft. I just don't think the draft is happening for a starting quarterback in 2025. So let's see what you guys are saying here. Well, first, George T asks, suppose Fields want more than Steelers are willing to pay him. Well, then I think I don't think it's going to be more than Russ is going to want. So I think at that point, if you're the Steelers, you're going to have to bite the bullet and pony up some money for a quarterback. So, but maybe if that's the case, maybe they go the trade route. So, here's a good question from Ruin at Randy. Would they sign either Russ or Fields and trade them? Or is that too NBA-ish? NBA-ish, good point right now. It's been quite a crazy day for the NBA. Not that I watch it, but when you follow it on Twitter, it is insanity happening going down there. in the NBA level of things. If you're an NBA fan, I'm not. So, yeah, that's teach their own. But if you're an NBA fan, you're seeing trades like crazy, and it's an insane day, probably a really fun day for NBA fans, much like as we get closer to the new league year when teams are making their trade discussions and things like that for big quarterbacks and big time players. So would they sign either Russ or Fields and trade them? I don't think you're going to sign a guy to ship him out the door, but I could be wrong. Maybe Sean McVay really has a plan for a Justin Fields, and you sign him if you're Pittsburgh, and you trade him along with a second round pick to the Rams for Matt Stafford. I don't know. That's just throwing something out there. So it seems a little too NBA-ish to me, but that could be intriguing. Maybe the Steelers need to have that kind of approach. I don't know. They need to change something up. So Quad Father says free agency. I would think. I agree with you. Kathy says, do you see any possibility they sign both quarterbacks? I really don't. I think that AR2 made his statement very clearly that he would not want to do that, and I don't think that that's what the Steelers will do. So I'm going to say no to that one. I think that the Steelers will probably go with one or the other and then build their quarterback room accordingly. One thing you could say is the fact that they already have Skylar Thompson on the roster. If they want to not have differing styles in the quarterback room too much, Russell Wilson and Skylar Thompson are going to be a little bit more similar in the way they play football. So I don't know if that means anything. Probably not, because Skylar's the third quarterback right now, or he would be the third quarterback on the roster. Most likely he's a futures contract guy. So I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Oh, Mark Cunningham actually is talking about that here. Rooney says he wants the QB room to have similar skills moving forward. So yeah. I 100% agree there. Al on the Prowl says, position yourself for when Manning comes out. Hey, that's not a bad idea. It's really not. And next year's quarterback class does look like it's going to be better. There's going to be a deeper group of options in that first round. So, yeah, I would make that play. I've said stockpile your 2026 draft picks so you can move up in the draft, because we know the Steelers are not going to sit back and lose 15 games this next year, 14, 13 games this next year, unless they're just that bad, because they're going to try to win every game. That is not something that they're going to do. So you're going to have to trade up if you're going to do something like that. And the draft's going to be in Pittsburgh. Go get splashy, man. Make your fans happy and do it on the big stage in town. Downtown for Pittsburgh Steelers. Get the Manning kid in the building. I'd love it. I would love it. Dennis does not share my affinity for Geno Smith. Sounds like. Don't trade for Smith under any circumstances. If you expound on that later, Dennis, I'd love to hear it. Because I just think that he's got some, like I said, some prime years left, and he's a decent quarterback. Okay. A top 10, 12 quarterback. I think reads the field well, not afraid to make throws down the field, can control the offense from the line of scrimmage. He does a lot of things really well. He's turned into a really good quarterback, in my opinion. Afton says, I wish Art would pay developmental staff, especially for QBs and wide receivers. Yeah, I agree. Somebody to work with those guys one-on-one while the ones are taking the reps in practice. That would be a really great idea. Mark Cunningham says Stafford wouldn't survive with our young O-line, which is why a mobile QB is a must. That's a point. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that the Steelers would expect their offensive line to be much better and more cohesive in 2025. I would expect that, but if you're going to live on that expectation and then it doesn't work, then yeah, Matt Stafford might get killed back there. He really might. But again, a guy who knows how to get rid of the ball quickly and reads defenses very well. So he might survive. He might. We'll see. We may not see too. George Pactaman, you have a point, but we are not just a QB away from winning the Super Bowl. This is a great point too. So what do the Steelers do with that conversation? They may think that we're a draft class, a free agency class, and a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. That remains to be seen. I'm highly skeptical of that myself. So let's see. Al on the Prowl says, if Milroe falls to where the Steelers are, I would pick him. I would not touch Jalen Milroe, not to be too disagreeable there, man, but I would not touch Jalen Milroe until the third round of this draft. I just would not. The traits are there, or there's a skill set there that's very intriguing. It's just he's got so long to go, and you've got so many other needs. I would not pick him at 21, where the Steelers are sitting right now, personally. Let's see. Oh, Alan the Proud says, other than that, I would try to find a good corner. I would go corner for sure. I would go corner. I would go defensive line. I would go wide receiver with that first pick. That would be great. That'd be great. Let's see. Some guys saying Milroe's got small hands. Yeah. That is very true. 8 3/4 hands at the Senior Bowl. That's crazy. Alan the Proud says we are a whole team away from winning a Super Bowl. I wouldn't agree with that too much. I think they've got some good pieces. I think they've got championship caliber stars, but things fall apart from the coaching staff, and I just don't know what happens there. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of that, we're going to dive into some more of my questions. We're going to tackle some of yours as you bring those in. So don't go anywhere. If you're listening live, you know the drill. We're not going anywhere, but if you are listening to this audio only on recording, then after this ad break, we will be right back with more of the Steelers Q&A. And welcome back to the Steelers Q&A. It's a Sunday night. This is going to be on Sunday nights for the remainder of the offseason, barring scheduling conflicts or anything like that. We will keep you posted. I'm going to try, if something changes throughout the season or the offseason here for this show, to post it on my X account at the Betz 93. If you're not following, give us a follow here, and I would love to connect with you on the socials as well. So, one of my other big questions is, what do the Steelers do at wide receiver and running back in 2025? And Afton, you're reading my mind, girl. This is good stuff. Where do you think we draft running back? This is a great question, and it goes right with my question here. What do the Steelers do at wide receiver and running back? The skill positions, tight end seems to be pretty set. They might go get somebody in the draft late or something like that, or undrafted free agent that's got some toolsy descriptors, right, to see if he could bring some more balance to that room. Maybe they move on from a Connor Hayward. We'll see. But what do the Steelers do at wide receiver and running back? I think that they're going to draft both right off the bat. Are they going to trade away a George Pickens? Are they going to re-sign Najee Harris? Probably not. I don't think Najee Harris is going to be a Steeler in 2025. So I think there's going to be a pick in the draft, and you'll combine that person with Jaylen Warren, who's a restricted free agent. Probably they will tender something that would be good enough for them to be able to keep him. I don't see somebody going out and spending big bucks on him and the Steelers not matching whatever other offers he might get. It's going to be low enough to where they'd match probably whatever. So that's intriguing. Who's going to be the guys catching balls and running the rock for the Steelers? We know the offensive line group, pretty much the starters there. We have no idea who the quarterback's going to be, I guess, but there's a kind of a limited set of options there. So you have some idea. But yeah, this is wide open. Do they trade George Pickens away? Do they sign a T. Higgins? Do they trade for somebody else, a Cooper Kupp, something like that? I think that's wide open. There's a lot of different ways they can go. So I want to hear from you. Where do they go at these positions? Chelsea Durham says we need Jack Beck. I agree with that. He is a great player. He's got a lot of good traits. I'm diving into some of his tape after the Senior Bowl, and he had a great week and a great story, and he caught the game-winning touchdown at the Senior Bowl. So there's a lot to like with this guy. I just want to see some of the measurables, right? Some of the traits like the 40-yard, the speed, the quickness, some of those things. You saw a lot of good stuff out of him, good hands, route running. So there's going to be some other things to consider there. But they need to make a move in the draft at both wide receiver and running back to me. And then at wide receiver specifically, I think you make multiple moves there. either trades or free agency and the draft. So you're going to have to do a couple different things there. See. Gavin Anthony says, of the two, or which of the two Ohio State running backs for the Steelers scheme better? That's a really good question. I think that Travion Henderson is my favorite of the two backs between him and Quinyon Judkins, excuse me. But he's a little more Jaylen Warren-like, in my opinion. He's probably faster than Warren, but he's kind of more of that spark plug type running back. And that's what I think Jaylen Warren is. Judkins seems to be like the tote the rock on first and second down and figure out what you need to do on third down with somebody else. So I think that the Steelers would probably be more inclined to go draft a Judkins than they would a Henderson. But personally, I think Henderson is the better back. I think he might end up having the better career if someone's willing to feature him. I just don't think the Steelers, if they keep Jaylen Warren, which I think they will, would go that route because they're similar players. They're not exactly the same player. Henderson is a good bit faster on tape, but Warren's got enough burst to get out there. So I don't know. There's other running backs, and I'm an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. There's other running backs I like better than both of these guys potentially. Really love to watch the tape. If you haven't watched the tape for Caleb Johnson yet, go watch that tape. This guy is smooth as butter, and he's got good hips, good vision in the hole. He's a ton of fun. I'm not a big Scatabo fan. Some people probably in this chat are big Scatabo fans. Cam Scatabo out of Arizona State. Not a huge fan of Cam Scatabo as more for anything more than a third down type back, personally. Now, I could be totally wrong on that evaluation, but that's my take on him. I'm not going to spend – if we walk into the season with Cam Scatabo and Jaylen Warren as the two starting backs on this roster, I think you've got an issue at running back, personally. So, Mark Cunningham agrees with me that he likes Henderson. And then if we keep Warren, come on, JB. Yeah. It's not an if, right? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But I never like to guarantee something because weird, crazy stuff happens in the NFL. So, Alan the Prowl says Pickens would be great for the Bills. What are you getting from the Bills in return for Pickens? That would be a good question to ask. If he ended up in a place with a really good quarterback, and a coaching system that's built in, that's scary to me. I think he'd be a great fit in Chicago. I really do. With Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams there, I think that would be lights out connection. I think he'd be great in Washington with Jaden Daniels too. Some NFC teams, if you want to send him out of the conference. Afton says if someone sent a second, I'd do it in a heartbeat, which I would assume means get rid of George Pickens. Mark Cunningham says Harris goes, Pickens stays, but no extension. If he acts up during the season, cut your losses. I agree with that. And then go get a big name guy via free agency and then draft somebody as well. See where Roman Wilson fits in. See where Calvin Austin fits in. Harris, you're gone. Thanks for your service, buddy. Really enjoyed watching you at times. Really did not enjoy watching you at others. That's just me, though. Maybe you guys liked the Najee Harris experience a little bit more than I did. All right. Question number 4. 2 more questions left for you guys tonight from me, and we'll keep answering yours. Give me 1 second while I take a quick throat wetter there. Little dry tongued here, but will the focus this offseason for the Steelers be offense or defense? That's my question. It needs to be offense. Sorry, I'm still showing this comment here. It needs to be offense, in my opinion. The Steelers ought to just load up on that side of the ball. Take a totally different approach. Say, Arthur Smith, give me a list. What do you want? What do you need to make this work? What's going to be the most dynamic version of your offense? Give me, George Pactaman says, give me more offense. I agree. Give me more offense. I need it. I need it in my life. Wow. If the Steelers were to come out here and this is a defensive heavy offseason, I would understand it if it was a team that already prioritizes offense. But for the Steelers, they have to have a change in philosophy this offseason, and they've got to prioritize that side of the ball. They really do. And there was a question in here. Is the O-line set from Danny Owens Jr.? Is the O-line set? I don't necessarily think so, for sure. If you get a valuable, or if you get a guy at value at a certain pick in this draft, second round, something like that, I wouldn't mind adding a guard to this offensive line. I wouldn't mind adding another tackle to this offensive line in case the Broderick Jones experiment is a flop. James Daniels is a free agent. Daniel or Afton Forehead asked that. Mark Cunningham agrees. Offense, let's modernize this bad boy. Preferably offense that isn't full of projects. Danny Owens says the draft will be 50-50 with offense early. And then George Pactman makes a good point. We have to address D-line and cornerback. You do. I agree with that. But at the expense of the offense, no. If I have to choose whether I'm upgrading defensive line or upgrading at wide receiver, I'm upgrading at wide receiver. If I have to choose between adding another cornerback and grabbing a difference-making running back in the middle of the draft, I think I'm going to take the running back. I'm sorry. I think that's what I'm going to do this year. If you're a defensive guy, and the Steelers probably are, this is going to be a 50-50 offseason probably, even though it should lean to the offensive side. I don't know, guys. I don't know if I can put up with another defense-heavy offseason, but I'm glad to see that you guys agree. Al in the process, we need a lockdown cornerback. Yeah, they need a lot of things, right? We talk about that. They're going to have some money. They have 8 draft picks right now. Make it happen. That's why I say sign Justin Fields. You don't have to spend any type of draft capital to get him in the building. And he's 26 years old. Some of these guys coming out are 26 years old. And he's got 5 years of experience in the NFL. 4 years of experience, going into year 5. And yeah, no draft capital. It's not going to be a huge contract. Spotrac has him listed his market value at like $8.6 million, which to me, he's going to get a little bit more than that probably because of the upside there. But if that's market value, these teams understand that. And that's probably what it's going to be in the range of. So Sam Darnold, you wouldn't have to use any draft capital on. He's going to be more expensive. Russell Wilson, obviously you wouldn't have to use draft capital on, but he's going to be more expensive and he's not what they need in my opinion. So, Gavin Andy says the draft will probably favor offense, but they will get defensive pieces too. Yeah, so I agree with that. 60-40 offense to defense, 70-30 even for me, offense to defense. I would do that. I would do that in a heartbeat. So, okay, so yeah, y'all agree with me here. I think that it's going to be – I think that it needs to be offense over defense. So then I guess my follow-up question is, which will it be? And – I don't know. I think the Steelers are going to see something of a light here this offseason. This may be just hope in me, but I think they're going to see some light this offseason and they're going to pursue bettering the team on the offensive side of the ball. That's what makes sense to me. It's what makes sense to anybody who's watched the Steelers for the last 5 years. And if they don't do that, they're just as good as one and done again. That's my opinion. Unless you can get the 85 Bears defense all together in one offseason here to pair with your stars currently, you ain't winning a Super Bowl with the offense you've been trotting out there the last few years. You're just not doing it. So get serious. Get serious about the offense. Absolutely. Spend some money on that side of the ball too for once. Spend some money there. Mark Cunningham says free agency is going to say a lot about how serious we are about improving this offense. Mark, we must be reading the same notes or coming at it from the same line of thinking here. Supplement via draft. That's not a bad idea. focus heavy on the offense in free agency. I agree with that. And then maybe go 50-50 in the draft. That sounds good to me. Let's do it. Danny Owen says sign Justin Fields to a 3-year contract. I wouldn't hate that. I'd do at least 2 years. Cordman Tommy, welcome into the chat, man. Draft Egbuka, love it. Keep Pickens, love it. Sign T. Higgins. Whoa. Wide receiver room complete and probably best in the NFL. That would be lights out. Lights out. I would love it. Absolutely would love it. I would even love it with Justin Fields as the quarterback. So, Hafton says, I don't trust Pickens to show up every week. Well, even if he showed up for, 3/4 of the weeks, you still got the other 2 guys here. So we'd be okay. Excuse me. That's a joke, more or less, but Afton, that's good stuff there. I like it. Okay. My final question. And again, not necessarily asking this as to what I would want them to do. I'm asking this as what will they do? I wrote an article for this week. It's Omar Khan season. Step aside, Mike Tomlin. It is Omar Khan season now. We don't need to see your face anymore for a little while. We're tired of it. We would rather forget that you exist for a little bit. We want to see some hope instilled in us via the off-season program here. And to me, the person who brings that is Omar Khan. So my question, does Omar Khan lay low or get aggressive this offseason? Here's what I want to see. We've seen some calculated aggressiveness from them so far, from Omar Khan, Andy Weidel in their ownership of the front office here, right? We've seen some calculated aggressiveness. I want to see some out-the-box thinking aggressiveness. I don't care if you maybe overspend for a big-time piece to get him in the building, to make sure you have that guy, and to better your team and your offensive philosophy moving forward. Even on the defensive side, if you have to go grab somebody to make that side of the ball work so then you can focus the rest of your offseason on the offense, do it, man. I don't care. Don't sit on your hands until they come to you for everything this year. Let's go out and be aggressive on our own. So Danny Owens Jr. says, Omar will be aggressive but smart. See, that's what I think he's done a very good job of being so far. I'm saying be a little reckless this offseason if you have to. And I think that they have to. I think they've backed themselves into a corner where they have to because the fans are done. We're shot. We're done with this poor playoff performances, poor December performances. It's got to be a little stay calculated, yes, but I mean, don't go be throwing second-round picks for Chase Claypool around, right? Don't turn into the Bears, but do something to spark this team and to make it better. Something that can trigger and elevate this team above what coaching can do, because we've seen what coaching does, where coaching takes this team. It takes you to a playoff berth and not much farther. We need transcendent players that transcend what the coaches are able to do and can take them further. So we'll see if they can do that. Let's see. George Pactman says, Omar Khan is not a true GM. He does not make the decisions. I see where you're coming from because he's the financial guru. Mike Tomlin's hand is very heavily in the offseason. He's the one, in on all of these decisions for players. Andy Weidel, I think, has a huge role in this too. I think the team of Khan and Weidel is what'll go out there and make the aggressive move, though, for somebody. And the fact that the rumblings we heard out of Pittsburgh all season were that there were some people who were not happy with Mike Tomlin for the move from Fields to Russ. I think some of those people, some people in the organization, I think that was the front office. I think they recognized the value of the youth and the upside over the win now approach. And Omar Khan and Andy Weidel probably sitting there saying, Coach, I know you want to win this year. I know there's a lot of pressure on you to win this year, but we don't have the full roster for that yet. Pushing the development of these guys beyond what they're capable of doing and trying to win one with Russ is probably too much. And I know, we wanted to see playoff wins. I think you could have gotten something like that even if you'd kept Justin Fields in there, if his upside continued to grow. But if not, then you have some growing pains and maybe you have a better draft slot and maybe you're able to work some more magic with your offseason. It's neither here nor there because it never happened. But I guess my point is that I think Omar Khan has a say in this organization about who's coming into the building, which decisions are made personnel-wise from a player perspective. And I think that he's a little bit more involved than maybe that comment would suggest. But that's my opinion. So Cord Man Tommy says, agree. The con man will come at this season. Man, I sure hope so. We need his face to be on the article photos and interview posters and everything like that for a little bit. Just need that in my life. So I see a few things. See a few things here from you guys. Afton says, I bet Bengals tag T again. Afton says Andy Weidel is heavily involved. Absolutely. Tomlin interferes with Omar Khan's job a lot. Yeah, I mean, he's the CEO. Mike Tomlin is, right? And we've been asking him to delegate some things out for years. I think he's done a little bit more of that with the roster building under Omar Khan. It's been a different strategy for who they're going after with Kevin Colbert gone. So I think that there's something to say about Omar Khan's impact on the team, sans Colbert, with Tomlin still heavily involved. But I kind of agree. I think he's got to get aggressive this offseason. I think he knows it. And I think there's going to be some big-time moves made. So it's going to be a fun offseason for those notifications in the middle of the night, right? And staying up way too late, refreshing Twitter to see who the Steelers signed on opening day of free agency. There's a lot to look forward to. Last thing I'll get to here, and I appreciate all of you guys answering my questions for once here on the show, and then got to answer some of yours as well. Lots of fun to do that. We might do this format down the road a little bit later again, and as things happen. So, but Super Bowl Sunday coming up. I want to see in the comments who you're rooting for, who you think's going to win. Let those predictions come in. If you got score predictions, pop them in here. I think that it's going to be a good game. I think the Eagles are game for this one, just like they were last time. The defense is better than it was back then. The offense runs through Saquon Barkley, and I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to have to do as much. But I do think that they've got big-time winners on the outside in Devonta Smith and why is his name escaping me? A.J. Brown. I think that Saquon's a difference maker, but that Chiefs defense, Steve Spagnuolo, they come out for the biggest games. They make big plays. They hold teams down. And Patrick Mahomes does not make mistakes in the big moment. He just doesn't. And I do hope the refs do not lay a big hand in this one. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Lots of Eagles fans here in the comments. I actually think Kansas City is going to win. I really do. I don't want it to happen, and I don't like throwing that out into the universe if you believe in that type of thing. But hey, I still think the Eagles are going to be game for this one. I would not be surprised if this is a really good Super Bowl. I kind of agree with Gavin here. I actually believe the ratings will go down somewhat. I think some people are just going to be tired of that dynasty of the Chiefs. And I mean, the Eagles have been to Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 years as well. So that's pretty good on their part in the NFC. It's been the Niners and the Eagles the last 4 years. So that's pretty good company, if you ask me. Maybe the Eagles can squeeze this one out. If they do, it'll be because the Chiefs just can't stop Saquon. Patrick Mahomes stays on the sideline, and there's not enough time or enough opportunities, not enough time, but enough opportunities for him to get out there and score and make the Eagles pay for him being on the field. So we'll see. A big-time Saquon Barkley game, big-time scheme game, and for all the flack he gets as a head coach, and some of it is warranted, some of it is just Philadelphia stuff, right? Nick Sirianni can scheme up some darn good offense and a darn good game plan. And I know Kellen Moore's got a lot to do with that. I know Vic Fangio's got a lot to do with that. They're coordinators, but this guy puts it all together, and he's got himself a team rolling here, and it's a good team, and he's a good coach. And I mean, Steelers fans would give anything for a head coach who can take them to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years again, right? We'll see. Refs, stay out of this game. Stay out of it. Let them play. Don't call dumb stuff. Don't make this the refs gave the Chiefs a 3rd Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to win it. Let them win it fair and square. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to say Chiefs 26, Eagles 24. Mahomes gets down late for a last-second field goal to win it. That's my prediction. So thank you all for tuning in to this edition of the Steelers Q&A. Sorry we didn't have a guest tonight. Next time we will. Promise you that. Maybe we'll get Coach KT Smith on. Maybe we'll get Corey Eckenroth back on here. Maybe we'll go get somebody that hasn't been on here in a while. We'll see. But stay tuned to this show, to the Steel Curtain Network. I'll be back next Sunday here. If you missed the Steelers fix from last week, go check it out. We'll be back again Thursday. If you missed the Draft Dynasty podcast from this last week, go check it out. We'll be back again on that one on Friday. And then this show again this next Sunday. Thanks, Afton. Pretty entertaining by myself, too. I think so, too. I can entertain myself for hours. I know. Maybe that's too much of me than what you wanted, but that's just how I feel. So. Just kidding, you guys. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Y'all have a... Why am I saying y'all? Must because I'm been North Carolinianized or something like that. Yins, have a good night. We'll talk to you later. Go Steelers.
Riding on cloud nine, we are living the good life. It's a good life. Living the good life. It's a good life. Living the good life.